Well, I appreciate you stopping by, man. You took some time out to have this conversation with me today.
Oh yeah, no problem.
So if you guys don't know, which you'll know him soon, but this is my guy, FM Masochist. You'll find him on TikTok with that handle. He talks politics. He talks really a few things. Like I've seen you cover a few topics on that app.
I just yap.
Same. The reason I brought you onto my show, mainly, it's going to come down to this idea of how we got to where we are today. And when I say that, I mean politically, of course. When we look at the alt-right pipeline and how it started online, we see a lot of action, and there's a lot of, I'm looking for a word here, it lives in like hobby spaces almost, like in these online communities, these niche communities. And you come from one. You come from the bodybuilder community, right?
When you bring up like the different niche communities, I actually, when I think about it, I come from a couple of them. So the most recent ones would be, weightlifting, bodybuilding, and just like general fitness and strength training and sports and stuff like that.
That makes sense. And you game a little bit too, right?
Oh yeah, I do gaming, and another thing that, like, another one of my hobbies is miniature and figurine paintings, but nice. Specifically through Warhammer 40K.
I was gonna ask.
So like, I don't have any of my big ones nearby, but this is I can kind of pull.
Oh, nice. Okay. My introduction to Warhammer was the video game that they just put out.
Oh yeah, Space Marine 2. Yeah, so like that whole franchise too that's a whole thing. Like I got into that one back in like 2000. It's like 2005, 2006, so like 4th edition. Like this is the tabletop RPG, which, Dungeons and Dragons also has its own little issue with alt-right. Same thing with like fantasy, like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, whatever it is. So really, like to kind of like bring it back to the main topic, which is the hobbyists and the alt-right pipeline.
I mean, and that makes a lot of sense. So, like, have you seen anything, and, you don't have to speak to any, like, ridiculous stories or anything, but, like, have you experienced that? Like, have you seen, you had a conversation and realized, oh, this hobby is turning into something else, or, like, I'll give you an example, just being online and watching the Pepe memes, for example, with that frog, and you would, like, I saw that as a completely innocuous and assuming thing until I learned, like, about what was being symbolized.
One of the more like common ones, like if you go into these hobby spaces, like that's really infamous, specifically within the Warhammer community, is Black Templar fans, and they're and just for the long and short of it is like they are a faction within this fictional grimdark future that act as like inquisitors, and so they're supposed to be hardcore and suspicious of everybody and like basically ultra fascists in and of themselves within the lore.
Say, aren't there some themes in the universe, we'll say?
Oh yeah, basically things that reflect reality very very accurately, which is why I and myself and a lot of people love Warhammer, because it was originally very satirical, very like highfalutin when you delve into the themes. But if you're someone who is media illiterate, you tend to take it kind of like, oh man, this is super cool. And that's where like the meme of Black Templar fans is they act like they do what a lot of conservatives and fascists like to do, which is the whole, oh, I'm just joking, man.
Yeah.
But when you're pretending to be a super, Space Marine fascist whose literally only objective is to be the most space racist possible, and you're taking that into real life, it gets a little suspicious,
Helldivers, I noticed that with too. It didn't seem like a few people were not taking the right lesson from Helldivers when they dropped 2. Not the future that you're supposed to want to like get excited to see. I don't know. That's just what it seemed like when I was seeing it. That's interesting, though.
Oh no, that 100% was the case. And if because I know you wanted to talk specifically on like,
we can go where the conversation goes. It's not that there's an outcome.
Okay,
it's not.
Yeah, like, but for me, I guess for me specifically, I like to focus on fitness, strength and conditioning, or at least the way it's been marketed today, looks maxing community.
Isn't that funny how that evolved?
The way I put it down in my own mind was, it is the logical conclusion to an illogical ideology.
Yeah, I like that. Just because I saw somebody else speaking to it earlier. I don't have the video saved, but she was talking about how Vogue magazine had these freaking snack tins. And they're basically like they're encouraging girls to put like 4 cashews, a half a piece of chocolate, a raisin, in a little tin, and that's like your midday. You know what I'm saying? So eating disorders are back. But then when I look at a guy like Clav, do you know what I'm saying? When I look at a guy like Clav, and it's like, is that not the same thing? You know what I'm saying? As far as just like all of the unhealthy body standards, the unhealthy health practices to achieve them. Like the fact that he himself is not a product of any kind of and maybe I'm a little bit too principled on the idea, right? But people like are full aware of the idea that a lot of these people are not what they actually appear to be. People are fully aware that Clav smashed his bones to achieve some of this stuff and all that. And it's still like, yeah, let's achieve to it. It's so weird.
I mean, not even smash bones, but like he literally, if I remember correctly, was getting on to anabolic agents when he was 14 years old in the middle of COVID.
The craziest clip I've heard from that guy is that he does heroin for like health reasons. He's doing medical heroin to stay like trim or something. I'm like, buddy.
Okay, like here's the problem though.
What, are you going to advocate for medical heroin?
No, I'm saying the problem is our literal director of health and human services also said he took heroin in college.
You know what's so funny? It's like you can have a regular conversation until you realize what the White House is up to nowadays. You know what I mean? Like you can have everything's based in logic, and then well, the president just did that. You're right. You're right.
Like, and this is the terrifying thing is like having to explain. So I'm a millennial, and so my parents are legit like actual boomers, right? Mm-hmm. Like legitimate baby boomers, and there was never like. Even like in 2016, right, when we had to deal with like this is just the second coming of Gamergate 2.0, basically, right? It's just now, and it's like full mask off form for the most part. Yeah. But like even back then, I never thought I would have to ever explain to my parents who Nicholas Fuentes is, let alone Charlie Kirk.
Even Hassan Campbell, or Hassan Campbell and Hassan Piker. Shit. Everybody, like all of these niche internet people, right? Like they have so much more relevance.
Yeah, exactly. It's and that's the problem is I think even up to the end of 2025, I was hearing a lot of political commentators, like even like Hassan Piker mentioning that like the internet's not real life, but even he kind of has done away with that because I mean. When the vice president is a literal groiper and who grew up on these internet forums and is, to our understanding, still interacting with people like Clavicular.
He wants Clav to think he's cool. Think about that. Our vice president wants Clav to think he's like, this is crazy, dog.
Okay, I think people start saying that JD Vance got on Ozempic because Clavicular called him fat.
Did you hear Peter Thiel is bankrolling that guy?
I heard the rumors that has more come out because I saw a couple interviews where Clavicular runs away or he starts like responding like really hostile and people are like, so what about Peter Thiel? He was invited to a Peter Thiel party, wasn't he?
I wouldn't be surprised. I think I did hear something like that too, but I think the video I'm thinking of, which I think the media might pick this up, but Channel 5 with Andrew Callahan just did a video about the whole little setup. So I'm not that that's like the linchpin of a media wave, but I'm kind of predicting a little bit more steam around that idea, you know?
Yeah, well, there's the interesting thing is like if I were to like go back to when like I was a niche fitness influencer, right? Like but yeah, this is me. Yeah, this was me about how old is this video? This was 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago, roughly. So yeah, this was when I was on my professional weightlifting arc. That's 160 kilograms. That's roughly it's 352 pounds.
Okay. You're not playing with that.
And just
you did it for college, right? Or in college? Was a college athlete?
I did at the end of college and led into like a professional weightlifting venture, but like nice. I was doing this stuff back when I was like the internet of these social media platforms, right? Like the interconnectivity of the algorithms and all of that stuff was not nearly as potent as it is today, because it was, all of this still was compartmentalized. The biggest creator at this time was PewDiePie, I think.
Right.
Like that's how old this video is, right?
And when Ray William Johnson was running YouTube, people forget he used to run.
But those creators were locked in on YouTube, right? But and if you were locked in on YouTube, you didn't really get that virality on, you know, Facebook or. But now, like Clavicular's getting interviews with like the New York Times, CNN, 60 Minutes, and all these other things, and a big role of that is the fact that he blew up on Kick's, like all the clip culture, pumped that on TikTok. Half of like America uses TikTok, connects to those algorithms, hits YouTube. Like it cascades out, and like you're right, like, and it just, that's part of the suspicion though, is you need to be either extremely authentically viral to like break containment, even with all that interconnectivity.
It's very true.
Or you just need someone who has a lot of money, just keep pumping you.
You're talking right now. I'll say that because I'll tell you this, because I used to do music back in the day. That was my, like, that's my internet introduction. And like, you learn very quickly how much of a pay to play kind of game it is. And so even with real journalistic outlets, even with like the New York Times, they're taking money from certain places to talk about certain things. And I just wouldn't be surprised. Like if it's not a direct transaction, Peter Thiel still has the pull to pay the person to make it happen. You know what I'm saying?
Even more superficial than that, it's the fact that like platforms like Kick and Rumble and all of that are built off of the same Amazon platform that that runs Twitch, right? It's all in the same Amazon, just a reskin platform for more and more extremely right wing content, right? So the thing is with Twitch, the best way to get promoted on the channel is to have a lot of activity on your channel, like comments, so on and so forth, right? But specifically monetary transactions like cheering bits or gifting subs will generate and create what's called a hype train, and that hype train boosts you up and will promote you into the front page at times, right? It's literally a quote pay to play, but obviously the payment is coming from voluntary subscriptions or donations from your fans, all that stuff.
That can definitely be gamed. You know what I mean? If I have a billionaire friend, okay, so do me a favor, jump on this account, hit me with this many interactions a day. You know what I'm saying? At least give me like a booster. I can see it for sure.
If you're in Twitch culture, especially on like the political side of things, there are, there's different names for them, right? Oilers, juicers, all that stuff, right? Anonymous chatters who go from Twitch channel to Twitch channel of like kind of the same orbit and will dump ridiculous amount of gifts in there, right? Like they go by different anonymous names. Really? There's a couple of them called open presents or closed presents, right? Like that's kind of like notorious around, like, let's say the Twitch leftist sphere, thousands of dollars, right? And they'll do it multiple times per week in these different channels. And these are like very well off individuals who genuinely want to support these creators, right? But at the same time, that system is still available and open to someone like, Peter Thiel or Elon Musk or any other chronically online billionaire who wants to artificially inflate through this exposure algorithm and the subsequent clip culture behind it, whatever methed out poster child they want,
That's really interesting. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't think about that. They do it on TikTok too, though, believe it or not, man. I think me and you have had like a conversation about it before, but like I feel like they've done it to mine, and they've recently, like I was doing a bunch of posts about books over the summer. Like I did a few of them about like a people's history and stuff like that. And Harper's, that one of the publishers reached out to try to boost one of my old videos, which is cool. I'm not like, you know what I mean? But like they do it. This is something that happens. So it's actually pretty interesting to think that it happens in the stream space. Not that it couldn't have, but I never thought that. I just never put two and two together, I guess. But they do.
Yeah, I mean, it happens on TikTok Live too with GIFs, like people spamming GIFs, like promote, make it more likely that you're on the For You page.
I mean,
Right.
one thing about TikTok, you could tell that they want to push the live platform. You could tell that they want to have it, but like in comparison to a Twitch, for example, you don't have the ability to go search for a chat stream on TikTok. You just click live and then they're serving you up live streams. Do you know what I mean? Like it's an interesting format to say the least. I think it works well for videos, not as much for the streams. Because if I'm genuinely looking for somebody talking politics live, unless I'm following that person, I would have no idea on that app.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the downside of Twitch as well, is it's not very good with discoverability. Their UI hasn't really changed all that much since, like, I remember first getting on it like around 2017 ish, but it is better for discovery in terms of, categories or things like that. So if you are but it's also because it is easy to manipulate someone to the front page, because there is the problem with not just people dumping gifts in it, right? There is the botting problem, right? That exists on every other platform.
I would imagine botting comes into play when that's the game.
Oh yeah. And that's another problem too on the platform, but that one's more nefarious and less, I would say materially significant, because it's not tricking people into donating a bunch of money, like, because the sub counts and everything like that doesn't follow, but it's still
like, people get mad that TikTok pushes the promote feature. I 200% think it's to avoid people trying to bot them.
I can see that too.
You know what
right?
I mean? Like just here,
yeah,
we will literally let you pay to play if you want to, in comparison to going through like a third party and then opening us up to all these security challenges.
And it's an interesting feature that is both annoying, because it's like I don't want to promote it, and it also ignores it. Not ignores, but it's clear that it's just a marketing thing, because like you've seen them, right, where it goes like, this post is performing 80% better, right?
I have. Yeah. Oh, this is hitting 20%. Go ahead and give us $20 for 10,000 more views. What the fuck is wrong with y'all?
Yeah, the funniest thing is I have a video that's still popping off right now, but I have a couple other videos that are doing like, normal numbers for me, at least, right, for random yapping content. And it popped up the two videos I put around the one that's got about, I think, half a million views right now.
Oh,
but it doesn't say anything about the one getting 500,000 views. Like, if you told me $20 to give you another 500,000 views, I'd probably do it.
Yeah, but see, and then there's just like what, and so, because people make the point that a TikTok view is not worth as much as a YouTube view, which I agree with at the end of the day. Like, you're literally getting served these, and that's a view. But the flip side, let's not gamify it too much, because now it's not worth shit. If 500,000, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do think that, and this is just to tie it back in with that overall topic of the show here, there's a lot of systems and a lot of layers at play that contribute to the circumstance we're in right now. And like, unless you're in a lot of these games, you don't realize how manipulatable it really is. But it makes you wonder, like, are people, like, when you get signed to some of these agencies, are they just pushing you like that in the background artificially? Just drop something. But in the background artificially, like, it's interesting. And like, again, if we live in this capitalist place where winners win, and if you have enough money, you therefore have the influence to keep winning. Why wouldn't that be what we're dealing with in the social media space?
Yeah. Well, I think the reason why they don't want to necessarily make that like at least from an official platform stance, is the illusion of meritocracy, right?
Yeah, it is an illusion, by the way, on that app. That's what I figured out too, just to be honest. You can pop off, but I've noticed some things. Yeah, they do want to keep that illusion of meritocracy for sure.
Yeah, and that's why, like, think when it comes to this this overarching conversation, not just here, but like people are having online and in real life in like the halls of Congress, or at least the Democratic ones of like, why is everything falling apart, is illusion around this aesthetic of merit actually still meaning something in the United States. For better or for worse, sports still has that veneer of, of like, oh, if you work hard and do your best and blah blah, like you can make it to the big leagues, while simultaneously also saying that, if you want to make it to like the NFL, you would have a better chance of winning the Powerball, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because it's like it is interesting to think about it like that, because the odds of going pro are just like winning the Powerball sometimes. But the flip side is they do treat it like it's some kind of meritocracy, when like, yes, you need to have the skills as an athlete, but I come to find a lot of times it's about your situation too. You know what I mean? Like, are you the best 3-point shooter in Iowa versus the best 3-point shooter in Houston, Texas? You might get to some different outcomes.
It was really interesting that I was just thinking about the other day, like when reflecting on all this, is you don't hear about underdog stories, and we're not seeing any new like movies or TV shows or whatever about like this one athlete who, grew up poor, or this one athlete who never went to college but still wanted to go to the pros and just like worked hard and like Rocky Balboa style, right?
Yeah.
That hasn't really been a thing. And I think it's truthfully because in order to actually become successful, not only do you, like you said, you have to be in the right like location to get noticed, right? But also the increasing affordability crisis of sports, and the accessibility to not just people with the knowledge, like coaches, whoever, but like facilities that have proper equipment, functional equipment. They have like massages or whatever on staff, right?
Therapy. People underestimate that, like recovery after training and your proneness to injuries and how all of that builds up over time,
Oh, I know 100%. Yeah, I broke my neck. That's what took me out of the game.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that would do it to me too. Yeah, that would do it to me too.
I was back squatting, and when it wasn't even the heaviest weight I had ever done. It was only, what was it? 182, so 400 pounds. It wasn't even that heavy for me. But like,
oh my God.
The bar, I shrugged up instead of locking my shoulders down, and it rolled the bar up on my neck as I was standing up in my very last rep, and I felt this crunch, and I went, that didn't feel good.
No, that's crazy as hell. That's crazy as hell. Oh my God. Dude.
It was that kind of crunch that you can feel and hear at the same time. So I racked and just like, I just stopped, my hands on my hips. I turned around and just looked at like my roommate at the time and just went, I fucked up. And I just immediately laid down, and he was like, you okay? I'm like,
nah, dude.
I was like, nah, man, let me just lay here and see if something happens to my fingers and toes in like 5 minutes. All right. And
yeah, I mean, but yeah, that's a good, at least you had the logical mind to be like, my neck might be broke. Let's protect the extremities.
Yeah, I was just, well, that came with the 2 degrees I have, but yeah, I was just like, I woke up and I couldn't move.
Because you have a degree,
I have 2.
Go ahead, tell the audience what you're qualified in, sir.
Oh yeah, so for everyone who's listening, my name is FM Maskus, but you can also call me Matt. That's my surname, not surname, first name. But my prior life started with 2 degrees in exercise science and sports and human performance, a bachelor's in science and a master's in arts, right? And I've done sports my whole life. Competitive swimming and golf up in high school, and then some track and field as well. Then when I got to college, did bodybuilding, cheerleading, some judo and jujitsu, and some like MMA kind of stuff too.
You did judo too?
Yeah, I did judo. That was my favorite one to do.
I did a little bit of judo, but you know me, I'm I don't. Well, you've never seen me in real life, but I'm a skinny guy, so it didn't really make sense to keep being thrown around in my own weight class. I'm like, because it's like you. It would be like, I'm how tall am I at the point? I'm probably 5'10" in the junior year of high school or something like that. And like this 5'7" dude is in my weight class and just low center of gravity. Just it was bad.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm 5'9" on a good day, and right now I'm 245 pounds.
Okay,
so.
I mean, hey, listen, you got to play the sports that you know what I mean? Like, that's where you want to be at.
When I was in my grad program for sports student performance, my mentor was a black man who, well, he was half black, but black man nonetheless. Man. Yeah. But he grew up in Iowa with a wrestling, or he went to university in Iowa. And he was very open and honest about the fact that, you know, there weren't very many black people in Iowa, and being a black man wrestling against a whole bunch of country boys.
Country boys. God.
Yeah, and then also Iowa is historically Iowa University, the Hawkeyes are historically one of the most dominating universities, and he would wrestle against them like his entire career. And he said the proudest moment of his entire wrestling career was beating an Iowa wrestler. Like, he didn't care what his actual record was. He was like, that's the only thing I cared about. He didn't let us get, and also the assistant strength and conditioning coach, he was the head coach for Olympic sports. The assistant was one of the first openly lesbian strength and conditioning coaches in the NCAA in like an open relationship.
Oh, interesting. An open, like in a relationship.
Yeah, with the golf coach,
the
women's golf coach.
I mean, not that an open relationship. I just wanted to make sure I understood what you were saying.
and they got married too eventually, right, and had a kid. Nice. So suffice to say that regardless of how much, you know, some people on the sports performance program at the time, a couple chuds, right, wanted to not think about politics. It was literally in their face every single day, right? And at this time, Occupy Wall Street was popping off at too. So like we were talking about stuff all the time.
Occupy Wall Street, not to take you off this, but I remember that time. I was a little bit younger at the time, though. I was probably like halfway through middle school, if I'm just keeping it real. But our teachers, because I went to middle school in Philly, and our teachers were telling us all about it. I had a teacher who was in and out of the protest, and the school district was super cool about just letting her go up to, I think they were at like Philadelphia City Hall or like Love Park doing theirs. But it was, to say the least, one of the more eye-opening moments of my childhood, just to see all of these adults up in arms about income inequality and being willing to talk to the kids and explain like what the hell they're mad about. Because that was during the first or second Obama administration, if I remember right. So it was just like a lot of interesting conversation going around like progress. You know, we were asking questions like, okay, but we got Obama in office. Why are you guys protesting? I thought we won.
Yeah, exactly. So you're like, we're good, right? And then a couple of years later, you're seeing kids getting maced point blank for the first time. And
I think 2 years later, Tamir Rice died. So for me, it was like that and then police brutality wave. So it's not that it would never existed before either. Like, obviously it existed, but that heavily televised Black Death era that started with Tamir Rice and Tamar and Trayvon Martin, that was the next thing for me. So it was kind of all leftward from there.
Oh yeah, no, and that's what one of the interesting things I find about, I don't know what you want to call it, but like body fascism. Yeah. This concept of like the aesthetics around a strong, youthful or vigorous a body or an individual filled with vitality, which typically scales towards like lean, muscular, fit, so on and so forth, right? Even though that's very tied to this classical Western romanticism about like Greek culture and like Socrates and Plato and talking like all over the place, right? The literal concept of like a gymnasium back in antiquity was where men, you know, women had their own gymnasiums too, right? Of a certain class, right? But it was separated, but where like men would go to not only exercise their bodies, but their minds, have these discussions about society, class, and politics to because they were trying to understand how to run the society that they were in charge of. And now there is this desperate, like bulwark against any kind of
open dialogue
commentary about. Yeah.
No, I'm following you there. And you know what, you were getting into a really interesting point, and we've been talking about it the whole episode, and you have a degree in this kind of stuff, so you might be a little bit more versed in this than I am. But there's a study where basically they take some of the, you have stable, let's just call them stable societal conditions for rats. And then they took the stable societal conditions out. And basically by the end of the trial, the male rats that would normally be, I guess, doing more, and this is again, lack of a better word, shit, but like hunter gatherer shit, they were more focused on beauty standards and more focused on like self grooming and preening by the time that they did all that. And I look at the Clav situation, and I look at him smashing his bones to get to a certain face and be like, yeah, I mog JD Vance. I would vote for Gavin Newsom because he mogs JD Vance. Is that like, it feels full circle. And I wish I knew what study I was talking about right now. I'm probably going to look this up as we're chopping it up, but
I don't doubt that there is a study on that, like to try and understand or I guess you could say societal.
I just like the
mechanics.
Because, and I don't want to make this like a respectability politics, weird pseudoscience thing either, where it's like, oh yeah, you got to have two man and a woman in the house. And that's why the rats started doing that stupid shit. I'm not trying to say that right now, but it's called rat utopia. Okay. If you Google rodent utopia, you'll find this study. And basically he did a large enclosure where mice had like abundant food, water, and nesting material, but limited space as the population grew. And as the conditions deteriorated, the maladjusted males took to grooming all day, preening and licking themselves hour after hour. And the researcher called them the beautiful ones. And yet, even while obsessing over their appearance, these males had zero interest in courting females and zero interest in sex. AKA, now we get to talk about Nick Fuentes again. Now we get to talk about it feels really full circle.
So, but this is also the same. I think I haven't really looked much into this, but it sounds very similar to one of the original guests on the Joe Rogan Experience that got me hooked into thinking like, oh yeah, this Joe Rogan is actually like a progressive dude, open to mind. Was talking to,
I mean, and it's not even a cut, but at a time,
the first tenured professor at Columbia University, black professor. Dr. Carl Hart.
Big fan of Dr. Carl Hart. I'm a huge fan of him.
Okay, I'm glad. I was just about to put an asterisk there. I don't know if he's hit chud status like a lot of, but he never seemed that way.
The decriminalized drugs thing is not going to be a chud thing ever. I don't think.
And the thing is that he doesn't do it hippy dippy style. Like he actually has. He's done the research, and he also grew up in Miami during the cocaine cowboy era and saw like what happened, and in a way de-radicalized himself from that whole like moral superiority, kind of thing of like, oh, drugs is a moral failing, and going like, oh no, this was a whole like structural societal thing on top of, he was one of the first people like to look at those rat studies and go, well, yeah, the rats are going to go to the water with the cocaine in it when you take away everything that makes rat life worth living.
And he's like, have you ever had cocaine? Of course they're going to do that.
And that's like that. What I see, like, at least from, I don't know if you've ever owned like cats or anything like that.
Yeah. I got a cat right now. Be pissing me off.
Okay. Yeah. So like, like cats will, and animals in general, like dogs too, like sometimes when they get stressed or anxious, they will groom themselves excessively. And I could see that being just the response here from these rats as they are grooming themselves and they're becoming more, I guess you could say, sexually appealing to a female rat. I don't know how they would measure that.
Well, and the weird thing was,
or how they have
in the at least in the specific, it's because it's the Calhoun study. I think they call it Universe 25. But they talk about how they would do this with no interest in actual like reproduction when they got to that point. You know what I'm saying? That, it's a population thing at the end of the day. We let the population explode in this utopia for 25 rats, we have 100 rats. What do the rats do now? You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, this line here on the Wikipedia at least says they lost the social skills required to mate. So yeah, it's like they cleaned themselves so much they either lost interest or they didn't have ability to like actually interact with female rats to reproduce.
And not that like, because again, I'm trying to avoid getting into, because even studies are questionable a lot of times. You know, just like you were just saying with the counterpoint on the over grooming. You know,
since we're on a rat study, let's pivot back to my past real quick.
All right, what you got?
So I'm going to introduce you to my coach. My late coach, Glenn Pendlay.
All right. All right.
So tell me if you can hear it.
I can hear it.
Okay, so this is they're watching two other weightlifters lift massive amounts of weight, right? And the guy who's coming up is Kevin Cornell, which there's too many stories about Kevin. But anyway, Kevin asked Glenn, "How do I become as big and as strong as Donnie Shankle?"
What? Donnie's so big and I'm not. How do I get like that?
You go back, pick a different dad and a different mom.
So it's not happening?
No, it's not.
Go back, pick a different dad.
So that was my former late coach Glenn Pendlay, right? Real big in like weightlifting spaces, and unironically, probably someone that Clavicular might have read about, like in his time in bodybuilding forums, because a lot of the stuff that Glenn kind of innovated or talked about, because he went to this university, I think it was Kansas State University for exercise exercise physiology, and he did some insane research at his time there. Normally we would train 9 times a week, right? We trained twice on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and then one time Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays right in the morning. But Glenn was like, all right, I'm going to try this experiment with 2 of our top lifters who are like in the lighter weight classes. One was a 75 kilo weightlifter, and the other one was a 69 kilo weightlifter. So like around like 150 to like 140 pounds, right? And he's like, the training program is going to be this. They're going to work out for 20 minutes max up to a certain intensity for a certain amount of reps, right? For 1 or 2 exercises, and then take a break, like take a 30-minute break. And then they would repeat that cycle. I think it was a total of 12 times throughout the day.
Got it.
So they were like, they would work up like a total of like 15 reps, really, like in these 20-minute sessions, up to 70% of their maximum weight, 75, 77, and then back down, like do kind of like pyramids and stuff.
Okay.
But these guys were like snatching, right? Like putting from the ground overhead instantly. They were doing 200, 250, 300 pounds at these like percent, like 70% of their max weight. And so they built up, and they both did this for a month straight. And when some of the bigger guys saw the results, right? Because I think I'd have to text them, but I'm pretty sure both of them, who were veteran national level weightlifters, right? Very hard to put on numbers. Both put on 20 kilograms, like on their total lifts, like a totality. So they got like 10 kilograms between a snatch and a clean and jerk, which is an insane amount of progress.
Okay.
And when you would have to train, I would say, like you have to train like hard for 4 years straight to just get 20 kilos on your total at that point, right? So the rest of us were like us, bigger guys, right? The heavy, like moderate class. We're like, fucking Glenn, put us on this shit, man. Let's do this. And he's like, no, you would all die if you try this. And we were like, well, how'd you come up with this plan, dude? Because the other guys had to take like a full 2 weeks off from training. They were fried. Glenn explains the rationale behind this training program was, well, I read the study where they took a bunch of rats and tied weights to their bodies and then threw them into a bucket of water. to see how long they could swim until fatigue. And they would repeat the process until the rats drowned. And then they would do a vivisection of their bodies, like cut them up and measure their tissue and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and then so these dead rats had really, really great muscle growth and muscle strength, and they were just so awesome. And we were all sitting there going,
oh, okay, you're crazy as hell.
going, yeah, we were just like, dude, you created a training program off of dead mice, and he was like, yeah.
I told you it would kill you, didn't I?
But like to bring it back to
it's a full circle.
The clavicular thing is the irony being that these individuals do look at like these pseudo intellectual thing that everyone from clavicular, even to my old weightlifting coach who looked at this one study and was like, I'm going to try and like apply this to real life in some kind of performance or well, literally performance too, like performing like off your sex appeal and all that stuff, just comes from this pseudo intellectual position of, because I can rationalize it, it is therefore a true and real thing. Like smacking your face with a hammer is going to somehow develop your chin and not give you CTE.
It's a correlation versus causation kind of conversation. It sounds like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's that makes a lot of sense.
And that's something that really hasn't unfortunately changed when it comes to like the fitness industry and the like these aesthetics of like, oh, being fit and strong and therefore knowledgeable. That's been consistent since the start. Like I was actually looking up, like I said, clips. Hold on a second.
Well, and I'll say this too while you're looking that up. I feel like fitness is the one place where the literal proof is like what you're looking at sometimes, not all the times, you know what I'm saying? But in the world where you have a guy who wants to be as strong and then there's a guy that's visibly strong telling you to do this specific exercise, there's a little bit of that.
Oh yeah, no, that actually was something I had written down here, but this is actually an even better point because I was just pulling up an old video of like, I remember when you know who Bradley Martin is, right?
I've heard the name and I know he's in that bodybuilding space, but like I was never a bodybuilder, so I never got into like the content. I've heard the name though.
Yeah, he interviewed Clavicular and he's interviewed Nick Fuentes like twice. And Andrew Tate.
Okay,
but it's just funny because I remember when Bradley Martin first popped up on YouTube when he was when he co-collabed with Dom Mazzetti of Bro Science.
Okay,
like way back here, right? But it is funny because you go to an even better point. Where was he? Where's old Bradley? While I look for him, the better point is that there he is. Yeah, fitness and working out is the one thing fascists, conservatives, red pill content, whatever you want to call them, can promise you that will actually come true. Because if you tell someone, do this workout plan, even in like the most generic workout plan, you tell them, hey, do this and you're going to, feel better. You're going to be able to stand up at work more. You're going to be able to go out more often, be less tired, blah, 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 so on and so forth. You're going to look better. You're going to have better confidence, so on and so forth. It is the only promise that fascists can keep because it's the only thing that's actually, real, but the realness that comes from that fitness journey is from the individual themselves, not what you're being told, not the actual training plan.
So like, let me attach an ideology to something tangible so that you believe that the results, those tangible results, have something to do with that ideology and not just the base level kind of hobby we're involved in. Right. Like I'm
exactly. That's where now I'm going to pivot your audience into the dark reality of politics within the fitness sphere, right? Because if you ever delve into these conversations, you'll see people who are in the fitness space who are like, the Bradley Martin's podcast bros, right? Who are like, who make fun of people saying like, oh, people say working out's fascist, right? And no, working out is not inherently fascist or inherently conservative or right wing.
No, it shouldn't be.
But no, it shouldn't be. But the critical variables for maintaining like a fitness or strength and conditioning program or being a top level athlete, being disciplined, being able to adhere to a strict routine because you need to wake up and go to sleep to maximize as much rest as you possibly can, respecting different hierarchies, not only because it might offer you more of a chance to perform on your own actual literal team you're a part of, but in certain instances, it will literally open doorways to you politically within your networks. Like one of my other coaches, another late coach, Don McCauley, struggled with a lot of his athletes to get to the Olympic level because people didn't like him in USA weightlifting and continued to do this like little game of popping up, a new qualifier event here and a new qualifier event there, right? To try and fuck over his athletes. And that's because he didn't really adhere to the USA weightlifting hierarchy. He was also a chud too, so he was kind of like a libertarian chud, didn't like government or anything like that. But still, the point is, consistent of the system inherently, like if you're trying to be a bodybuilder, you're trying to be some kind of amateur athlete, work your way up to a professional status, you're trying to be a fitness creator who's trying to cozy up or land on this person's podcast to try and get you a good foothold in this space. That's respecting, the people who came before you, the people who put their time in. All of those things are coincidentally what make right-wing reactionary belief systems stronger, because the right believes in hierarchies. They believe in if they believe in the false sense of meritocracy, right? Because they won't ignore the fact that, yes, while there are in reality probably thousands of LeBron Jameses out there, being undiscovered, it's because they are, maybe in places where they don't have a grocery store within traveling distance. So they're constantly spending money and gas money and have to be limited on the food they can buy, or they live so far away from these athletic events, like you'd have to commute an hour, like total trip. And that's not good for school and your family, especially if you have parents who are working. Like,
I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Let me just tell you a quick, I promise it's related. But when I moved back to Milwaukee in 2012 from Philly, we had a governor named Scott Walker, and Scott Walker decided, he was a Republican, decided he was going to defund all of the public schools and move them over to move the funds to a choice charter system. You might be familiar with that one. You get a voucher if you're in a certain income level to be able to send your kid to a private school. So they took the money out the public schools for that. And the amount of talented athletes that I've met in Milwaukee, the amount of one-of-one basketball talents that I've met and seen in Milwaukee that just did not get the chance off the strength of your school's program being underfunded. Y'all don't have the extra training camps. You know what I'm saying? Little stuff like that makes for a really big picture. Just to kind of yes and what you're saying. I've seen that firsthand.
Not trying to call out anybody specifically, but actually I am right now. Steph Curry, insane player, great athlete. He's from Akron, Ohio.
You know what? I think people aren't, I think there's a connection with that Ohio piece that connects to today. You know who has a lot of money and lives in Ohio? A certain billionaire that is in a certain group of files. And I just would, I've done no research, so I'm not saying names right now, but wouldn't it be crazy to find out that a certain, I'm going to just say his name. Wouldn't it be crazy to find out Les Wexner has something to do with LeBron James's development coming out of Ohio? He's touched everything else.
I mean, it's true. He is a good businessman, however, depending on what business you're into, right? But
we were just talking about the economics of athletics nowadays and how it kind of is a money game to get into that development system and to be able to have that shot.
Yeah, I'd have to look into it, but it's even if it's not like a direct connection. Like he was like, oh, I'm going to give LeBron James $1,000 scholarship or whatever, or just like signing bonus to.
I need a tax write-off, so let me give it to the school this kid happens to go to. Not that he was thinking about the kid, but you know what I'm saying? Like it could go as just as simple, you know?
Exactly. I mean, all the businesses that he owned, like he owned like a freaking hospital. Like he literally
when they were contributing. When they were depositioning him, the main thing you heard from these Congress people was how evident how much power Les Wexner had when you drove into the city.
Oh yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Insane. Like I don't know what they were referencing, but I'm assuming his name's everywhere out there, which would tell you, it'd tell you something.
Yeah. So when I first moved to Columbus, Ohio, with my ex-wife, we initially moved to like kind of the seedier side of town. Got screwed up over with this duplex, right? And we had to like bail real quick. And eventually I found this place in a nicer part of the neighborhood that my ex-wife always wanted to live in. And after the experience we had, I was like, we're going to do it. It was in up in Gahanna, Ohio, which is catty corner to Columbus and New Albany. New Albany just so happens to be a place that Les Wexner really, really likes.
Yeah.
But on my drive to work, I would literally drive by the main L Brands Victoria's Secret like warehouse distribution center, like, and you'd see on the strip, it's Easton. That's what the outlet, the major outlet mall there, and everything. L Brands is just all over the place. Or at least it was. Victoria's Secret, Pink, Bath and Body Works, all of this stuff, and then you drive.
Ooh, I forgot that was Les Wexner. Bath and Body Works used to have a chokehold on everybody. If your mom, your girlfriend, your sister didn't buy anything from any of those brands, she didn't go to any of those stores. She went to a Bath and Body Works. That's crazy.
He did mad work with the branding, crazy. And it's insane because you drive. Not even off on. Yeah, not even a 5-minute drive down the road, and you turn right, you can see, like, just right over the horizon, the Les Wexner Medical Center.
Like, that's the one that caught that gynecologist at.
He's got, everything all over the place. And
you know what's really, I don't want to get too far off the topic, but I have another Ohio thought just real quick. So, you know what bank is, I'm sure you know what bank is headquartered in Ohio, in Columbus. Big bank, bigger. Some would say bigger than Wells Fargo. Some would say a direct competitor.
Oh yeah, J.P. Morgan Chase.
Also happened to be in the Epstein files, just like Les Wex.
Actually, this kind of makes it. I'm kind of confused, or not confused. I'm concerned about the whole, like Skibbity Ohio Riz.
Think about
meme.
Think about it. Really think about it. Because, when you find out that some of this stuff went as far back as, like, orchestrated on 4chan and Reddit, it's just like, were you guys just trying to spam out the Ohio SEO? So if we were going to talk about something that happened out there would be a bunch of memes you see first. It wouldn't be the craziest idea. I'll say that.
No, it wouldn't be, especially because, something... I've been trying to... I haven't been really painting all that well for your audience, but, like, my...
So far?
Time as a professional athlete within like Olympic style weightlifting was between 2013 and 2017, right? In 2013, all this was end of Obama, or into Trump 1. And I think you mentioned before too, or we've both mentioned before, like Gamergate and stuff. Gamergate and all that stuff started up in 2014 and ended in 2015. Same thing with Cambridge Analytica. The Cambridge Analytica, those sneaky surveys, all of that started in 2014 and ended in 2015 to help the Trump campaign.
Yep.
The gaming sphere was, very heavily intertwined with, and still is, fitness creators, because dudes like to work out and then go home and play video games, right? Yep. So they're right. So the influence of Gamergate was like, I wasn't fully free of it, and nobody was at that time.
A lot of internet culture, a lot of that was just either an after effect, a direct outcome of, or like a part of that culture that we're talking about. For
Yeah, exactly. And this was the thing that I didn't realize, and I don't remember anybody else bringing up. Gamergate was started by former, chief White House strategist Steve Bannon, because he was a part of Goldman Sachs and their acquisition. He said, "Hey, you know what? We should, go hire a bunch of foreign workers to farm gold in Minecraft, right? And sell that gold to people who don't want to waste that time in the game." And through that period of time, he realized, wow, there's a whole bunch of disenfranchised, mostly white young men who are looking for a purpose, and I'm an absolute monster. So I'm going to figure out how to manipulate them.
And I'm the worst person you'll ever meet. So you know what?
So he pitched this idea in addition to his best buddy, Jeffrey Epstein, who also had a direct role in the creation of microtransactions, right? Like, these people's fingers were in all these different pies, including all the things that make video games terrible. Right. The timing, when I was thinking about this, I was like, wait a minute, Cambridge Analytica was the same time as Gamergate, right? A suspiciously convenient right-wing reactionary online campaign. What are the odds? Because I don't remember anyone ever saying this in the media cycle. Was Steve Bannon in cahoots with both of those organizations,
What
both
are
of
the
those movements?
odds? Come on, man. Yeah, and because I was gonna get to this point too. I think what we're looking at right now is a three-headed hydra. I think that Gamergate, because Cambridge Analytica, that's actually something that I've like done some deep research on. It was so entrenched. They sat there and they bought all the Facebook data from Mark Zuckerberg, and then said, okay, we're going to take this and make behavioral profiles of these groups of Americans that we want, and we're going to craft media for them. But before they did that, they tested it in the Philippines, and it worked so well, which is where they realized it. Because what a lot of people don't realize, and this is something that I saw because they interviewed somebody about it that was like a Filipino analyst or something like that, but she came back over here and was like, Facebook is actually the absolute biggest market, or I'm sorry, the Philippines is the biggest market for Facebook users. So they took all that data, they tested the propaganda on the Philippines users. I believe it affected their elections over there. And then they're like, okay, it works. Brought it back over here, tied it in with the Gamergate kind of backing movement that they already had. And then there was a third part to this. I kind of want to say like Epstein a little bit was the third part of that, if you look at how he was moving in conjunction with all of this. But I feel like there's a better argument to be made. But it's definitely it's a three-headed hydra, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm pretty sure a bunch of the COVID skepticism was and like in the online spaces was tested in the Philippines as well.
Wouldn't surprise me.
But the reason I bring up Steve Bannon again specifically is he worked for Cambridge Analytica, right?
Yeah, he was on the the executive.
He's the vice president.
That's why I'm saying three-headed hydra, because it's not like literally, if we take Steve Bannon out of the picture, almost none of this happens. It's all from him,
It's like it's all from him, and it's all from with Jeffrey Epstein and Trump and all of these. It's like this is literally by their design. And
Brexit. I forgot that it affected Brexit.
Yeah, Brexit. It's literally this whole thing. And the reason I bring this up is because whereas the online right movement likes to dress itself up as this like intellectual, think tank of geniuses, right? Even someone who likes to pretend like they're like this physical specimen, Andrew Tate, right? When he's in front of a camera or something, he will yap in circles incoherently to try and appear as if has this giant intellectual prowess. But when it came to the gym culture, it was very heavily focused on this gung ho, kind of like military, mentality, right? Yeah. And another reason why you should think of the fitness Jim looks maxing venture as another part of that three-headed hydra is because another BFF of Jeffrey Epstein's who appears in the files is Peter Attia. Dr. Dr. Peter Attia.
Yep. I've heard that name a few times. I've never did the deep dive on Peter Attia.
So yeah, like this guy, Dr. Peter Attia, who is super big on like longevity.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the guy. Wasn't he drinking his son's blood or something crazy like that? Didn't I hear that? Maybe it's a different.
I don't know.
There. It could be a different longevity guy.
Could have been another guy, but Peter Attia was like this kind of first wave of. We got to look at the connection of Canada because we got Peter Attia.
Yeah.
We got Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
We got Ted Cruz.
Yeah. We got Drake. No, I'm kidding.
No, we got Drake. There's something going on with it, but
Canadians,
basically
man.
He the first generation of like people who went to med school and were just like, I'm going to change the system from the inside. And then they got to their residency and said, nah, fuck it. Right.
Actually.
And started focusing on like holistic, more natural remedies. Right.
Yeah.
And he came in and he created sort of, like what was it? The intellectual dark web, like the new atheists, all that kind of stuff.
I feel like I probably ran into that because me as an agnostic person, these are things that I look into. So I probably ran into it, but not like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So the intellectual dark web was like Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Bill Maher, and Bill Maher was also part of the new atheists, which was like, Hitchens, I'm trying to blank on the other. I've seen a few
of these people speak to the subjects too. It's just, I didn't realize there was like a thought movement organized, not behind it, but to represent it,
Yeah. These are older ones, right?
Yeah.
But like older movements, but like some of these people were like a part of this, including Gary Taubes, who's a scientific writer, but he helped promote this new age vilification of carbohydrates over fats alongside people like Peter Attia, Dave Asprey, and some other failed doctors like Sean Baker, who came up with the carnivore diet,
right?
The diet where all you do is eat nothing but meat. With him, he started this. He very similar to the vaccines cause autism thing that Scientology started with like celebrities.
I had no idea that was a Scientology thing.
But yeah, I mean, that was it wasn't really a Scientology thing per se, but it was started by John Travolta, who is a Scientologist.
So it's a Scientology thing.
Yeah, and those strange a lot of religions who are, especially if they approach fundamentalism, are skeptical of modern age medicine.
Yeah.
But whereas John Travolta popularized anti-vax skepticism with the general public, Peter Attia kind of popularized this like anti-medicine skepticism in these fitness, health, and wellness spaces with his own, quote, authority as a doctor, even though he's just a doctor in degree, degree only, not actual, like complete through his residency and all that process as well. He's not board certified or anything. So this, once you kind of like, once you drop that stone into the river, it creates those ripples, and it's only a hop, skip, and a jump away from, you should don't trust your doctor. You just need to work out, get your diet in order, blah, blah, to if you work out hard enough and strong enough, you don't need a vaccine because your immune system will be strong enough to handle COVID, to just literal illiteracy around how biological agents react in your body, and you're injecting all types of hormones and steroids into your 14-year-old body, completely changing not just your own, like how you're going to develop with like musculature, bones, hormones, but your actual brain function. Like, full disclosure to your audience, I have done anabolic steroids, not when I was a weightlifter, but when I was a bodybuilder, right? Yeah. And that stuff changes you mentally in a lot of different ways. It's not necessarily like the typical roid rage, right? But it will make people more aggressive. It's just like maybe more assertive is the best manner, right? But like I did that when I was not fully developed mentally, but like this whole like three-headed dragon or three-headed hydra like you mentioned has done so much to not only, disrupt and upset these different aspects of society and culture, all the way from just what you do recreationally in a gym to just try and feel better or look better to the actual systems of government. They've also, with like some not so insignificant authority and knowledge, planted the seeds of disbelief, distrust, and just outright, lies that are now the main problem that we're fighting with. Instead, like we're trying to tell people, hey, the bridges are collapsing and the water is running out, but now we have to like explain to them the importance of why a bridge shouldn't fall apart. If you graduated high school like before COVID, you basically got on like the last chopper out of Nam, right?
Yeah.
Like, out of Saigon.
Yeah, I don't know. I got a cousin who's 17 right now, or he might be 16 turning 17, but I remember being, and everybody's different, because I know some younger kids who are also a little bit politically active and stuff like that with the stuff that I just kind of do. But like, I don't know. I just remember being a kid in his exact position and being a lot more politically aware, because he's not stupid either. Like, I don't want to say like, oh, this kid's just dull. He's one of the smarter kids I know. But like, again, it's just the things that they seem to care about do seem to be shifting for sure. Like, it's different.
Something that's been a part of like the fitness community and culture, especially when like when I was in it, was this obsession with the way like women were, dressing and working out, right? Because it was also the advent of
leggings,
leggings, Skims was that one?
That was probably right around that time.
The leotards, basically the leotard outfits, which like I lifted in leggings, like all the weightlifters lifted in leggings, right? But like there was always this like policing of women's bodies, as is the case in our society, but it was super prevalent, being like, all these clothes are revealing, and like, and it's like, why do women should just dress more modest, or like wear like sweats, or it's like, that's become, I've seen that come like back more in vogue recently with like the fitness community. Like,
because I'm this is a yes and for sure, but as somebody who grew up in like one of my first political memories is 9/11. One of my first political memories is my TV, my kindergarten teacher turning on the television, showing us what the hell happened, and then my mom coming to get me from school, right? And so, right. But I remember the news coverage after, and how the Islamic State wants to suppress the women. The Islamic State wants to do all of these things that we're doing today, and like are culturally the norm now. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even to the extent of like, they'll talk about how, oh yeah, they hang women over there for this and that. And I just did a video about this the other day, but it's like, our abortion laws kill a lot, like if not the same amount of women in these one-off situations over there that die over here. Like, it's not that different,
Yeah, it isn't. And in certain cases, like over here, it's just even more egregious, because we try to dress it up in this concept of like fake morality. Whereas however you want to frame it from like a theological viewpoint over in the Middle East, at least they're direct about it. They're open and honest about it, being like, this is how like these certain rules and scriptures and structure, like I don't know the specifics over there that haven't been tainted by propaganda, but like
seriously too, would you rather live in a theocracy or an oligarchy? Serious question. You know what I mean?
Honestly, yeah.
Which would be worse? Like, what's
I mean, yeah, I agree. Because the other day when they were like, oh yeah, the ceasefire is going to, happen it was like last weekend, right? When they weren't really surfacing to kick off. Iran was like, hey, we're going to take all of our kids out of school now because we don't trust you fuckers. And I'm just like, how am I supposed to be mad? How am I supposed to be mad at the government? That's like, we know what you guys like to do to schools, both foreign and domestic.
Ooh.
So we're taking our kids out of school. Like, how am I supposed to be mad?
The hardest Lego propaganda video of all, like of the whole series that they did. If there was one that was like, y'all shooting up our schools and yours. Oh my God. It's not funny, by the way. It's tragic as hell. Both sides actually tragic as hell. But
it's tragic, but it's also like,
back to the matter. Like, what are we saying? No schools are safe to the US around. Crazy.
I mean, but also at the same time, like, what are you supposed to do what am I supposed to do other than laugh at the fact that part of we went from having like Captain America transatlantic style movie theaters going, Steve Rogers, he punched Hitler in the face, see, to now Lego AI videos doing sea shanty covers making fun of Pete Hegseth.
I mean, and to be fair, what am I supposed to? We were I don't know, like this is where we get into the interesting conversation of fascism has always existed in America. You know what I'm saying? And not because this is still a yes and, but like it was kind of the same. I don't want to use the word grift, but effectively like we're gonna put this image out, but we're actually doing a similar thing back then, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like if we look at how the Nazis that Captain America will punch learned from the Jim Crow government of the South. How the apartheid people learn from the Jim Crow government of the South. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just interesting to think about. You know, I'm not because you're still right in saying that. But like when I think about that time period, though, it's just really interesting.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure. Because I think one of the things, too, that is so interesting about fascist movements, just from like a superficial level and the things I've been learning over the last few years, is how they love to be the failed theater kids they always have been their entire lives.
No, 200%.
Because when you look back at something like I sent you a message about this like a couple of days ago, but that one TikTok where people were like, this is the weird origin of Kellogg's cornflakes, right? Like there is a strange like conservative origin to the breakfast cereal cornflakes, being that John Kellogg's was a Seventh-day Adventist,
yes,
a very conservative Christian sect, who also happened to work in Battle River, Michigan sanatorium.
Yep, and he was testing it on them, right? If I remember that right.
Yeah, what?
I feel like he was testing the cereal on them in a sense. Like if I remember, there's a drug history episode about this.
Yeah. He believed that part of being able to help people, of their like insanity or whatever the diagnosis was back then, was a simple, plain diet, because like spices and stuff would drive you insane, right?
Oh, it's got too much sugar in there, huh?
So that and.
Why? I'm sorry, but like y'all, white people were so averse to spices back then, like to the extent that that's what made him crazy. There's too much salt. There's too much pepper. What is that? Onion salt? My bad.
He looked back at the British Empire and went, they were trying to stop this. They were trying to capture all the spice so it wouldn't drive people insane, because British people never used it.
Which is even funnier. Let's use all of the things that make food delicious as a currency. If that's not the most institutionalized colonial thought process.
And when I talk about showmanship, right? Like obviously, first Trump had he was very bombastic and he knew how to command a stage and all that stuff, right? And even
still does
on his second, he's a showman, right?
Yeah.
And I bring up John Kellogg because same thing. Like he was often he presented himself and to say sell off this snake oil solution, right? Same thing with, I forget the actual name of the people, but the people who came up with the concept of chiropractics were just a bunch of fraud who made all that shit up. And I think the son ran the dad over and killed him. I can't remember if it was by accident or on purpose, but a lot of this stuff is, you know, tried and true all the way up until like our modern day, right? So people might be asking themselves when they see someone like clavicular, how exactly is it that you can, you know, get steroids or these peptides to inject them into your bodies and stuff? And that goes back to a senator, but I think it was, hold on, I gotta remember his first name, John Orr. Senator. No, not Orrin Hatch. Okay. Orrin Hatch. I don't know if you know who Orrin Hatch
Another
is.
Name I've heard. Just the name I've heard, though. That's the extent.
Yeah, Senator Orrin. Yeah, Orrin Hatch was a Republican senator from Utah from 1977 to 2019. Very recently, one of his landmark pieces of legislature, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. So just remember that the guy who was responsible for opioids and nuclear testing also was behind the legislation for this act. So basically what this act did was, I'm just going to read from the Wikipedia. Yeah. It was intended to exempt the dietary and herbal supplement industry from most FDA drug regulations, allowing them to be sold and marketed without scientific backing for their health and medical claims. So he signed this legislature, and if I remember correctly, I don't know if it was his son or it was someone related to him, also happened to own a supplement manufacturing company.
Shout out Dr. Oz.
And these foods. Yep, exactly. And insert Dr. Oz now. You might be this is, you think that, okay, maybe this is a bit extreme. This one was 1994. Yeah. Some people might think, okay, what's the big deal? It's just protein powders and just like, I like my pre-workout. I like my gamer sups, right? The pre-workout I used to use back in the day, it was called Jack 3D.
Yeah, that you remember you was eating pure science. That shit looked like Kid yolks.
What the?
I'm sorry, that's funny as shit.
I don't know if you were ever old enough at the time to have original Four Loko. The Four Loko.
I wasn't old enough. Blind. I wasn't old enough, but my dad is a raging alcoholic. So yes, I've tried the original Four Loko. Yes. This
was unironically the Four Loko of pre-workouts back in the day. Jack 3D had a chemical compound in it called 1,3-DMAA. Dimethyl. Oh, I'm trying to blank on it now. Yeah. 1-dimethyl amylamine. Essentially an analog to meth, basically. It was very, very similar to, I was confusing the two names, methylhexanamine. That's what I originally want to call it. But it's a stimulant that has a unique side effects, but specifically it has very potent stimulation of your norepinephrine and dopamine receptors to the point where it is basically very, very similar to amphetamines, to methamphetamines, right?
Some nice euphoria with that workout there. They still sell this?
Eventually this got taken out because people kept having strokes.
Okay.
Literally getting stroked.
Okay.
Out.
All right.
I would take this to go do. I took this before working out, and I worked at a bar/club in college, and I would take this before I went to work.
Like, hey, you want to just strong it was. You want to just be a bouncer? Do you want to just be a? They saw you come in there off that shit. Hey, man, you want to just start throwing motherfuckers out of here, dog? Because you got it.
So yeah, that's when people are like, clavicular's taking meth to stay skinny. I'm like, I get it. This act has basically gotten to the point where it's like you can sell things and label them as dietary supplements, and until something negative happens, then will the FDA actually look at it? This kind of legislation also, or lack of legislation and loopholes, exists for anabolic agents. You can buy peptides. You can buy
sure can.
a whole bunch of things. I used to buy what was it? Whatever Cialis is. What's the Cialis? Whatever the Cialis. Sildenafil. I would buy that because it was like there was this thing called for a pre-workout called vasodilator, where it was like supposed to open up your blood vessels
system and all that.
Yeah, with your pump and lifting and all that. And I was just sitting there going, why would I waste money on this supplement that probably doesn't work? And actually, when I looked into like the whole mechanism behind nitric oxide, I'm like, okay, this doesn't really actually work that way in the human body. Why would I do that when I could just get Viagra and it would just be the same thing?
You don't want to talk about Jack 3D.
Because that's literally what it is. It's like, yeah, you pump it and you can get ready to go, but that's only if you're like mentally there. If you're take it and it's not like a magic boner pill.
Right. If
you take it and you're going to go get a pump, it's going to give you a pump that's like literally like bicep tearing, right?
That's insane.
And it was nutty and probably not safe to do. But
I was gonna say, but you know what? If we over here doing everything else, you know what I'm saying? Like that's some biohacking, I would say for sure. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, at the very least, like I guess these dudes are trying to get surgery because, like, even if it's like, did Drake get pec implants or an ass implant? I forget what it was.
There's lots of rumors about that man's plastic surgery. No one can tell you for sure at this point, though. But there's lots of rumors. Just on a side note, there's a very, very famous line out of the Kendrick beef when he was like, V12, that's a fast one. And everybody thought he was talking about a car. There's a V12 lipo machine. So there's lots of rumors about his plastic surgery and the work he's had done. But, you know, just to add a little context.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, so I bring that up because there's obviously been like, I don't know about all these other peptides that people are using, but the only peptide I knew that actually works is insulin. Okay. If you want to get like super jacked and super powerful, right? Really? I never went that. Yeah. So at a certain point, like you can inject all the steroids you want, but if you want to look like Mr. Olympia level big, like that massive, you have to not only increase the amount of like proteins, like so testosterone, anabolic agents like that increase your protein synthesis, right? So basically your turnover of the building blocks of protein in your body so that you can build more muscle, repair the muscle damage, so on and so forth, right? That's how you put on muscle. But even if you maximize your protein synthesis hypothetically to like 100, there's only so much growth that can occur because there's only so much nutrients that are entering your body, right?
Interesting. I don't know.
It is interesting.
Things you're saying right now. Please continue.
So the interest. So an anabolic response is growth of muscle, growth of tissue, right? People think anabolic. They think anabolic agents, steroids, but there's something that's actually even more powerful, in my opinion. I haven't looked it up in a while, but in a significant manner than steroids, and that is insulin. Insulin in and of itself, people will misconstrue and go, oh, if you have an insulin spike, that's storing, stuff in his body fat, so on and so forth. Insulin is required to transport nutrients, the building blocks of material and energy, fats, carbs, sugars, proteins, all that stuff into your cells. You need insulin to bring those nutrients into your cells. And when you cross that like that's the threshold that a lot of like Mr. Olympias cross into, at least modern day Olympias, like Ronnie Coleman-esque era, like allegedly, is insulin injection to maximize how much nutrients they can pump in, because theoretically you can do so much protein synthesis that if you had so much more nutrients there, you could just keep building. That's the logic behind steroids, right? So those were kind of like the two extreme. Those were the original combination of anabolics and peptides, right? Clavicular and them are injecting like peptides that are related to cosmetics into their faces and shit, right?
Yeah, like the Retta and shit like that. Which,
Yes, exactly.
I'm about to-
And they met.
I ain't too mad at him. Look, I've heard some good things. Okay. You know that's what they do. That's what they made. I think it was Kumail Nanjiani before he took the Marvel role, but then that's when it came out that like that's like the super soldier shot is like a combination of peptides and some other shit that they put into these actors and shit like it blew my mind.
Really?
Yeah, no, and this is
Interesting.
But it's like it's Retta and there's another peptide that they use and it's a combination and it changes the shape of their face. It's crazy. And they have names for these things too. So there's like the Wolverine stack, the glow protocol. I'm pretty sure the glow protocol is the one that I was talking about, but there are other ones and like a lot of times they're stacking peptides with Retta Trutide. So what I read was that it was BP 157 and then they combine it with TB 500. And
That's
like,
what they have here.
yeah.
Oh, they're talking about stacks.
Yeah.
They're talking about stacks, man.
Yeah,
on a women's health on
Listen,
Maryland.
Dudes can't be the only ones biohacking out here, man. You know, the patriarchy has to step away from this frontier as well.
That's true. Dude, you know what? Real talk, though. Real talk. I'm honest with the fact that there are actually dudes signing up to be Peter Thiel's blood boy.
I bet you it pays good. You know how fucked up the economy is right now.
Where are the women at? Because if women were like, I want a blood boy, they would have like 1,000 of them lined about the door. There'd probably only be like 5 usable ones, but
all of this stuff is like evil man aspiration, though. Also, not to say that there's no evil female billionaires. We got the Miriam Adelsons of the world and this and that. But like even her, you really just hear her donating to political candidates. You don't hear her on these draconian conquests of billionaire resource expenditure. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear any of this.
Ladies, y'all fell off after Margaret Thatcher. Like, what the hell? What the hell?
You know, I hate to be the guy to go back to like, not that this is a big concept for you or me, but just for the sake of a conversation and keeping things in like tangible, real present tenses. I don't like always going back to capitalism, but I do feel like we're watching a bunch of people realizing that a system, whether they realize that's what they're realizing or not, that a system that we all live under, that the society's organization that we have is again, to not oversimplify, but just not sustainable. Like in the world where dudes who, like if a society is running efficiently, dudes feel free to procreate. Women feel free to procreate. People feel free to procreate. Do you see what I'm saying? And so not to keep bringing it back to, I might call this episode the rat study, just to be honest with you, because if we go back to the rat study, this is what we're seeing. We see guys that are focused on bodybuilding. Clav is one of the most popular streamers and he's a looks maxer. In this study, when there were too many people and not enough, and again, I want to be really careful when I cite this study because I'm not an overpopulation believer. That's not what I'm here to be like. Oh, there's too many people, because that's how we get to the mass deportation campaign and all this other shit. That's not what I'm trying to do right now. But we are in a capitalist society that's in a very late stage. There are, in fact, like in the world where we have homeless people and all of this extra money to spend, we're going to increase the military budget to 1.5 trillion. In my head, that is the exact condition that those rats were in, where eventually there was not enough resources to go around. The conditions were not ideal to go out, hunt, gather, procreate. And so I'm going to sit in my room and looks max and watch this dude Clav looks max. And you know what I mean? And that's just what it reads to me. It's like you guys are the self-printing rats.
For sure.
I'm glad you pulled up a clip, by the way. I want to switch to the clip soon.
Oh yeah, no, this kind of goes in line with it because this is her name's Andra. She's pretty. She's not pretty. She is a big TikTok creator, especially in the political space. She's been doing like this anti-red pill content by basically being like, we're going to do like the manosphere stuff, but from like a woman's perspective.
That is funny.
And I'm just like, I'm neutral chaotic here at this point. I'm just like, yeah, do it. But this was a very interesting video and it goes in line. I pulled it up on like for a different point, but the rat point ties in even better.
Women are experiencing long periods of time of zero attraction to men.
No, and I feel so seen right now. We have to talk about it because so many women are coming forward and confessing like, hey, For some reason, I don't know why, I have not been actually like genuinely attracted to a man in so long. And Lord, have we been trying. But it almost feels like we grew out of it or something. And what is going on? And I have to agree. I honestly thought that I was fully done with men and had moved on past that until I recently ran into a man at an event. You may or may not know. That was for the first time live on film. You saw me feel something again. And I
think that's perfect. I think that's really good, actually. Truth be told, I think more women need to come out and be like, as opposed to being like, well, and not even as opposed, because this video is very clearly like the expression of what women are feeling right now. I'm not here to speak for them, but I do believe that if y'all were really out, that chicks were really out here thirst trapping the left leaning dudes, it would cut down like half of this right wing red pill shit we got going on. They would like, and not, it's not that I'm inviting a bunch of grifters over, because that's effectively what I'm doing right now. Flip side, though, some people might genuinely believe the shit that they learn in trying to fit that mold. You know, I think we would get at least a net positive out of it for sure. So shout out to Andre.
This is the first again. I wanted to react to the rest of it blind with you, so let's see. But I'm pretty sure the rest is good.
No doubt about it. Honestly, I think it was just an energy I didn't even know still existed in men out there somewhere, and I've been desperately clinging to that as a shred of hope for society ever since. But even recently, like a guy that I was in love with or had a crush on, whatever you want to call it, for years reached back out to me and started flirting with me. And watching it happen gave me the ick, which was crazy because if that man had reached out to me and said and done the exact same thing back when I was like 22, it's what I always dreamed of. But now in 2026, I was just like, it's kind of cringe. It's a little bit embarrassing at our grown age. And your jokes, I don't know, they're just not landing. Some of them are rubbing me a little bit the wrong way. And I'm not willing to let enough of this slide anymore.
Is that just her frontal lobe developing?
And
you know what I mean? Like just, and I'm not like, I think what she's saying is valid, but you're saying when you were 22. I don't know how old she is right now, and I'm not going to sit here and guess on the podcast. You know, they say that's why women shouldn't get married young, because it's like you quite literally would make a decision with your 22-year-old brain that like your 30-year-old brain would.
I think maybe. I don't know how.
I'm not guessing that she's 30.
I don't know how old she is.
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't. But I would guess it would probably be something really like fairly recent. But
I mean, she said years.
I also think.
So I mean, okay,
it's
boom,
true.
Boom, she's 25. Fuck it, she's 25. My bad, y'all.
But regardless, I think she's also made content talking about, you know, we should raise the age of consent and see who gets upset about it, right? And
that's funny as fuck.
But here's the thing, though, I think that's a fair assessment for once to be like, is that your frontal brain fully developing? Because that's also the same argument going on with Ashley St. Clair, Elon Musk's, you know, other attachment. She's saying like, I finally developed, like, whether that's a meme or not, let's consider that to be, you know, determined at a later date. But I think there is a fair point to being like, you know, if she was younger, you know, and didn't have that experience, she would have been more susceptible to falling, you know, back into the accepting bad behavior. But I want to let's finish the rest of it. I want to finish my thought real quick.
Combination of two things. I think one, men are getting worse. The manosphere is becoming bigger. And two, I'm building the women's sphere. We're all becoming more aware of this behavior and we're letting less of it slide as it gets worse. In girl math terms, it's like fixing your student loan debt by going out and buying a new car. You're actually just snowballing the whole thing and it's starting to get noticeably insane.
I think everybody's living through the outcomes of that bullshit, though. Like, you know what I mean? It's hard to deny now.
Yeah, the main thing, too, was just that I was trying to remember was the rat study, again, like the lack of social skills, right? Of being able to actually, because all they're doing is apparently cleaning themselves, which would be, if we're playing by the pseudo intellectual rules that have been set by the conservative movement, like, it's clear that someone like Asmongold, right, doesn't have interpersonal skills to be, you know, a normal functioning member of society outside of his home, right? It's kind of clear that the same thing goes for these looksmaxers like Clavicular, who don't really have these societal skills to engage in even like a decent conversation when you're literally on like international television, right? Like they don't have the social skills to.
Do you feel like people are trading online skills for social skills right now?
Yes, I think that there is I I don't know if there is like a shift of people engaging in behaviors that is more appropriate, quote, well, more acceptable online, and trying to transfer that, in real life, specifically in the younger generations. Like I have a nephew, right? And he's fucking got the skibbity toilet brain rot like early, right?
He's triple teed up.
He's 9.
He's triple teed up.
Yeah. It's easier for men to fall into antisocial behaviors.
Yeah.
Not because they're necessarily more prone to it than women, like from a natural standpoint or whatever it is, but because society overly pressures women to be social from an early age, right? Like against their own wills for a lot of it, right? Like people coming up being like talking to you against your will, and they have to learn how to navigate that. Whereas, men can get away with, not get away with, but
effectively. I mean, it's not like what's the word I want to look for? Promoted behavior, but you could just sit in the fucking corner. You know what I mean? In comparison to like a woman who maybe has a harder time doing that.
Right, exactly. In all the different ways of like antisocial behavior manifesting, whether it's, sitting in your home with your rat alarm clock that goes off when the sun hits it, or you're a dude who ODs in the middle of a live stream.
That did happen as well.
I don't even think that necessarily like obviously having a frontal lobe would make discernment like easier, but it's I think a behavior that is so blatantly antisocial that it is repulsive just by its default status, right?
What you're saying makes sense.
And additionally, when you think about the modern male role models, right? Like role models for men over the years, celebrity status, right? Like Brad Pitt or Matt Damon or George Clooney, whoever it is, right? The classic Hollywood guys, right? They were both male role models, but also simultaneously pushed as, sex symbols for women in the mainstream media. And it was easy to sell because, at least at superficial level, they also seemed like they knew how to, talk to women, treat women. They knew how to act like a gentleman. They knew how to be inquisitive and interested in the person. Who are the male role models or celebrities, like sex symbols, that are being pushed now, besides clavicular?
That's a great point. To the younger generation specifically, that's a great point. Because as I think about it, well, and I'll also say that like that's a outcome of traditional marketing too. And we're very much in a non-traditional space with media, where the biggest platforms, the most important platforms, we'll say, are not the CNNs and the ABCs and the SNLs and the Fox News. It's Clav, Kai Cenat, AMP, you know what I mean? Like these are, I would say that might be one thing to point to as to how that changed a little bit, but we still live in a society with an establishment that can back these things, like we were talking about earlier, monetarily. So it is a little surprising to see that even that same establishment that at one point would have pushed for example, Mark Wahlberg would have pushed who plays Deadpool?
Oh, Ryan Reynolds.
Would have pushed the Ryan Reynolds in the same way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's an interesting point, man.
Yeah, and it's not to be like, it's just to brainwash women, or women have to like that's. But it's more, it's the fact of like, obviously, like people are allowed to look at someone attractive in the media and have fantasies about said person, right?
Yeah.
And it's fine. Like, and especially beyond just their, physical traits.
Well, and I think he went into that in the video. You know what I mean? Just explaining like, hey, the for lack of a better word, how compromised these dudes are as a turnoff to her. You know what I'm saying?
Not even like trying to glaze Hassan, even though I've been subbed to him for like 2 years straight now.
Yeah, I mean, be a fan.
But he's like, he is like, if I were to like have a sea of dudes I'm staring out at and trying to pick one up to be like, this is going to be the next like sex symbol of Hollywood that I'm going to peddle in front of everybody and squeeze every bit of value out of, it would be Hassan Piker. The fact that, because I feel like they give him a little bit of that treatment now, but what I will say is the fact that we don't actually see more of it is pretty indicative of his standing, I want to say politically, but I kind of also want to say societally. Not that he's this oppressed person,
But if you're not in this sphere of influence being pushed by billionaires, you don't necessarily get that push. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is a yes and, you know what I'm saying? But I see.
The interesting thing is, and I know like you don't follow Hassan like I have for the last couple of years.
I'm coming
the
around.
Fun thing is that
I am coming around on him though. I really wasn't into it. Like I just was like not a fan to begin with. Like just never heard of the dude. And then like as I learned more, and it's like, okay, I got some interesting takes. I saw some interesting things, but overall, big picture, like I'm seeing it for sure. Just to clarify.
Yeah. It's like made for like when he first started picked up by like New York Times and whoever, right? Like trying to report on him. It was always having something to do with like style or lifestyle or like working out. Like the first like notorious piece I would say was when they first said it was like, I think it was the New York Times, and it was originally titled Hassan Piker, like a liberal mind in a MAGA body or something. And like the reason I bring it up is because like a lot of these outlets were trying to, get him in because he had a bunch of eyeballs on him at the time. But they relegated him to he's a himbo. He's something pretty to look at. Don't look too deep in his politics. Just stare at his chiseled jawline and his abnormally small head, and just focus on that. Right.
That's when Big Ben heard that them Israel comments.
Yeah,
put a stop to that shit.
That's the exact point is when like they started digging up the Israel stuff. They were like, that's when they started changing my attack. But it's just funny because that's why I bring him up specifically, because it's this idea of, not to say like Hassan Piker has to be the male role model X, Y, and Z, but like the last like new TikTok streamer that I like came across my page I'd never seen before was this, I forget what his name was, but he was hanging out with Larry Wheels and Rampage Jackson, and he started hitting on Larry Wheels' wife. And I've met Larry Wheels, all right? I've met Larry Wheels at the Arnold, and I have had suicidal ideations, just to be clear, but I'm not that suicidal, my dude. Like, and I was seeing him get smacked. He got smacked out of screen. Like that's the last dude who popped off on my timeline. And I'm just sitting here going, this is the role model like Gen Alpha is looking up to, is somebody getting punted across the screen by Larry Wheels.
Yeah, and I mean, the bigger issue, there was this dude named Boonk Gang. Do you remember Boonk Gang back in the day? He was like a Viner.
Oh, I think I didn't really get into Vine like until the very end.
I'm about to pull this up on YouTube. But Boonk Gang was the original rage baiter. You know what I'm saying? Here, let me try to pull this up.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that when we look at that and then we see not even just like the content that gets made, because I would say that what you just described is a spiritual successor of what Boonk Gang started back in 2015, 2016. I think he ended up switching over when going religious, and now his name is like John Gabbana or something like that. Is crazy.
Predictable.
I'm pulling it up before I get my screen up.
I remember this dude.
But like when you tell me that a guy is smacking a guy like Larry Wheels on stream, you know what I'm saying? Like that's just what I think of. And I think that when you talk about role models and people, like when we start to hear some of these crazier crimes or these pranks going wrong, I think that's what you're describing. That's the outcome, unfortunately. Like these kids are looking up to that, whether it's content or in like real life behaviors. Going back to the conversation you were having about how like, the role models, and they would pick these guys that could do these, that could fit these certain molds. We're seeing the opposite of that through these untraditional mediums that I do think is having that effect. I guess just to wrap up my thought,
because that's a lot of how we transmit attractable traits or things like that people may find attractable is through people that happen to get boosted or supported or broadcasted, right? Yeah. Like, but if all you're seeing is just a bunch of little immature man children running around, beating the shit out of each other or being obnoxious, like, you're not going to have much of an opinion of what you find attractive or not to construct your ideal
I know what you mean.
partner
Like,
or whatever it is.
I mean, and like just beyond, I think even like preferences in relationships and like sexuality, I think that people underestimate just how much behavior gets modeled off of the media that we consume. And so it plays into that. But like the example that's coming to my head is Zeus Network, where they're literally like, if you watch a show on Zeus Network, it's 85% hoes fighting. I'm sorry, it's 85% women getting into conflicts. And like the conflicts get physical. I'm gonna cut that out. But the conflicts get physical, okay? And it's just like, and then you go on Twitter and there's no shortage of fight videos. Some of them they even like Natalie Nunn, like they used to scream World Star back in the day, and that's a chick that's on, like, she hosts a lot of those shows. You know what I'm saying? Like it gets a little. I see what you're saying. I do. You know, and I used to be a guy. I used to hate when people get on hip hop back in the day. Oh, hip hop music is causing all this shit, and it kind of was like and it kind of wasn't, is what I'm trying to say. But like flip side, if we really analyze the media that we consume, and what gets pushed and what doesn't, and why, things start to make, we start to make connections. I'll leave it at that.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
I'll give you an example. Have you ever listened to a Future song? It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he's halfway, a bigger artist at this point. He was top 40 for a little while. Most of his mixtape cuts, it's literally like Percocet, like that's the whole song. So, and unless you're sponsored by the pharmaceutical companies, which he might not be directly, but the flip side is, there's a music video. I'm going to show you this shit. Hold on. There's a music video where Future is basically sitting in a pharmaceutical commercial. Do you see this? Wait, I mean, the front, honestly, what they did with it was hard. Narcan car, Suboxone car. What are we saying? They threw in a couple others too, right? Like they threw in, the more like image rap cars. But you can't tell me that's not a pharmaceutical ad. Let me try to get a still on the screen for me to chop it up with you about this with. You can't tell me the makers of Suboxone or Narcan are not behind this.
Making money off of this song, this music video. There's no way that they had someone in their like 24 layers of lawyer approval had to check this. You don't think be like, yeah, we're good.
Or even if they found out after, like, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. I feel like a C&D is warrantable. They would send a cease and desist kind of fast over some shit like this, unless it was approved, unless they like shit like this. So yeah, that's kind of, I think just to go back to them pushing bullshit, it happens.
I just typed in the Google, is Future the artist sponsored by a PH? And the first thing that pops up is pharmaceutical company.
Yeah. Because I mean, listen, I'm definitely not the first person to make this point. But yeah, no, you can't tell me you're not at least in not getting the cease and desist is a sponsorship. Like, just if you ask me, if they don't stop you and they see this shit, like, it's also a sponsorship.
Yeah, that is they are co-signing that. That's basically a stamp of approval.
And I like the Future songs, don't get me wrong, but I seen that as some things are harder to ignore than others. That was a hard thing to ignore. For me anyway.
He's just flexing on us. He's like, yeah, I got big pharma money.
Probably know your doctor. I'll be in the office at it. But everybody, this was FM Masochist. You want to tell the people anything about where they can find you? Just anything like that before we wrap it up.
You can find me on TikTok at FM_masochist. It'll be in the title, and it's the same thing on Twitch. I'm not doing Twitch right now until I get to my new place in a little bit, but if I do, I'm going to promote something that's more community based. Your audience, a preview to the greatest intro to a podcast besides the one I'm sure that you're cooking up. If you want to learn more about these right-wing reactionary figures who initially started on the internet and have now bled into our real world politics, I would check out the Reaction Podcast. It's from three of my favorite online leftist content creators, Mike from PA, Ugopnik, and Frida. They all stream on Twitch, but they came together to make this informative podcast about some of the most influential figures. And this is the very first episode that they did on the late Charlie Kirk. So I'll just let the intro speak for itself.
Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years? Counting or not counting gang violence?
Throat helps produce speech by acting as the main passageway and resonating chamber for air coming from the lungs. Air is pushed up through the voice box where the vocal folds vibrate to create sound. No throat means no air, and no air means no speech. At approximately 12:22 p.m. on September 10th, the main instrument of Charlie Kirk's craft was shattered by a bullet. His neck split open. One bang yeeted Charlie and the surrounding crowd out of their false notion of safety, a marketplace of ideas where controversial opinions and attitudes are traded like baseball cards, completely isolated from the effects they produce, suddenly felt the effect. A Mauser 98 Magnum, the forefather of all modern bolt-action rifles, perched on a rooftop, clicked once, and the world heard it. It was louder than the thousands of ARs, AKs, Remingtons, Glocks, and countless other instruments of death that had plagued American schools for decades. It was louder than the echoes of war and genocide. It was louder than reason, for an American son had died that day, and his rhetoric, his audience, and his power were now up for grabs. This is a story about just that, how a single death in a sea of thousands caused everything, and yet nothing, to change. This is a story of us all getting kirked.
It is fascinating, and if you are someone who wants to understand, right-wing ideology, right-wing figures, especially if you are someone who has young men in your life, like maybe a boyfriend, a son, a cousin, whoever it may be, and you want to know just exactly who they might be looking up to, this is going to be your all-encompassing resource for that.
That's a great put on there. I appreciate that. I had never heard of this before you said that. But no, dude, I appreciate you just kicking it with me. But again, y'all, I'm Dahmmy Hilfigger. This was episode 6 of Dahmyland. I was in here with my boy FM Masochist. We talked literally everything. Probably going to call this episode The Rat Study because that was pretty much the main idea here. If you know, you know. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Drop a like and a subscribe. Have a good day.